I'm sure most of you know the story, but some of you may not. But the kitchen actually goes back almost 40 years. Jean Webster was a casino chef, and she came home one night and saw a man searching for food in a dumpster. So she gave him $5 from her pocket, for $5 went further in those days, to buy a fast food meal, and invited him back to her home the next day. And he came back and she fed him. And then he came back again and he brought a friend. And then a few more friends came. And pretty soon the number of people that Jean was serving from her house outgrew the size of what she could do. So some people pitched in to help her. It was mostly led, interestingly, by a group of ministers who set up shop for the restaurant then in the kitchen and connecting rooms of a church at Pennsylvania and Pacific Avenue in Atlantic City. And soon Jean was feeding hundreds of people 5 days a week. And that continued up until about 2011, when unfortunately Jean passed away. But shortly before that, the group of ministers and friends that were helping her formed a nonprofit corporation to be able to raise some funds and help out. And so the Friends of Jean Webster, which is a 501c3, basically non-taxable corporation, charitable corporation, continued doing the work. And that continued on until about 2017. And we began to be a bit of a problem for the city because we were right in the middle of their tourism district, and across the street were casinos. And they didn't like the long lines of people that were waiting for food 5 days every week. So with some encouragement from the mayor, we moved about 2.5 blocks away, more into the city. At that point, the Catholic Church was closing down some missions, so we went from a Presbyterian church into an abandoned Catholic church. But that had several buildings, had a sanctuary, had a parish hall, and it had a rectory. So we moved in and we wanted to start work there, but before we could get anything done by way of permits, reconstruction, and stuff that was necessary, the city, with no warning, closed us down. And we were effectively out of business. And at that point, we could have quit, but that's not what Jean would have wanted. So we continued to persevere through some tough times, and I was here through some of those tough times, and you were helpful. And then COVID hit. And so we had a building that we couldn't use. We had COVID, so we couldn't serve food. So what we decided to do was to open a pantry and a garden. And with help from the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, we opened a pantry that was open 3 days every week. And we had a community garden. People could come from the neighborhood and get fresh vegetables. And we kept that up for a while, and then last August really, I guess, we finally had all the renovations and necessary approvals. We had to get variances and all that legal stuff to open the kitchen. So since January of last year, when the kitchen was open in August, but the pantry was open in January, since January of last year, as of the end of this week, we have provided over 288,000 meals for people that need food. I don't have last week's figures, but the week before, we provided 4,910 meals to people who needed food. That's a 30% increase from September of this year. So your help has been wonderful. The kitchen, the pantry, the garden are really a community effort. We receive help from the Community Food Bank, from the Red Cross, from the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, but it is really from individual donors, from local businesses, from over 300 volunteers, from student volunteers that we have that make this project work to feed other people. We have Baptists, we have Presbyterians, we have Lutherans, we have Catholics, we have Jews, we have Muslims, we have Hindus. All of these people have come together united by one thing. We have old people in nursing homes. We have school students. All of these people pitching in, united simply by the desire, the motivation to love their neighbor. We think, for us, that's the lesson that Jesus taught. Love your neighbor. And I want to thank you for doing that.